Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with Thomas Miller. Are you tired of your tweens, teens, and young adults' negative behaviors and poor choices holding you emotionally hostage, controlling your family, and ruling your life? Do you feel like you're riding an emotional roller coaster every time you walk into your house? If you answered yes, then you're in the right place. This podcast is a community for courageous parents just like you who come here to gain effective tools, skills, and learn concrete action steps that they can take to be more confident, calmer, and more empowered while parenting and changing their tween, teen, or young adult's life and improving their family's future. Welcome back to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller, and this is part 2 of our amazing, awesome deep dive with Katie Greer around all things tech. She is a digital safety expert and has 20 years experience helping schools, corporations, institutions, you name it, speaking directly to students K through 12 and educating them and arming them with all kinds of great ways to safely navigate tech, and not just safely navigate, but also, I guess, more holistically navigate. And she, of course, speaks to parents and educates them on how to be more efficacious, right, as a parent in supporting their kiddos. So welcome, Katie. Thank you so much for your time.
I'm psyched we could do a part 2 of this. Great.
So just a quick recap of the first episode in case folks missed it. Today, we're going to get more kind of zoomed in on what we should or shouldn't do, or things we can and cannot do. And Katie's going to give us a whole bunch of tech tips and tools. But what we covered in the last episode, which I think is super important, and please chime in, Katie, if I'm missing anything, was just really this idea that at the end of the day, irrespective of how much the things evolve and how different the landscape might be in 2 years, I don't think they have Walkmans anymore. I don't think.
God, bring those back, though.
Yeah, exactly. That as much as we want to throw up our hands and, oh my God, I don't know, pull the covers over, us as parents and just feel like there's nothing we can do. We're facing this ginormous machine that's this juggernaut. Katie was really clear in the first show here that, we actually can make a huge difference, and we can be relational. We can, right, be a cog in that machine in terms of utilizing us as a resource to help our kids navigate, and that we shouldn't just assume our kids have it. What were some other messages that we covered that you want to really convey to parents that we talked about in the first episode, Katie?
Yeah, I think the individuality and realizing this is not a one size fits all, which I know you cover and say often a lot in your practice and your Four Peaks stuff, right? That really paying attention to what works for us and our family and not being so blindsided by well, everyone else is doing it, or everyone else is giving their kids devices in 6th grade. So I should probably just toss my kid one, two, because they want one. And, this is not a one size fits all. And actually, I feel like parents always get frustrated. And one of the big questions I get asked by parents all the time is what age should these kids get their own devices? Which age is appropriate? And I'm like, I have a shit answer to that question. I don't know. I don't have an age. I don't have an answer. I don't It's what works for your family. It's what works individually for those kids. And I think rolling up our sleeves and thinking about that a lot is what we need to do more of.
Yeah. One thing I just want to tack on, and then I definitely want, you to give us all these tips, right? So we can walk away and feel more empowered. But I
Yeah.
love that it's less shiny and pretty. It's more kind of common sense. It feels like more often than not. And I think about this family I was just working with a couple weeks ago and help them connect her with. I have a huge network of therapeutic consultants that help the families that I coach find therapeutic placements. And we were able to find her a therapeutic program specifically for teens who have OCD, which I was able to help them immediately flag and So crazy to me. No one else could. It's ridiculous. But at any rate, it was like super obvi people. But at any rate, not hating on the parents, more hating on the mental health system, which is completely
Sure.
broken. And I will do a whole
Oh, it's so
episode on
bad.
that. But at any rate, what was so cool is that the major takeaway for this teen, yes, she got what are called exposure response prevention skills there, which is an evidence-based modality for OCD, and some
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral and mindfulness and DBT. Those are evidence-based tools. But the biggest thing for her was just to not be on the phone. And for her to have this like step away and reset, because that's just like super important too. I think that we forget. I remember back as a child, every year my world got bigger like block by block. Like literally, I used to be able to ride my bike to Taco Bell and then 7-Eleven. If you know what a 7-Eleven is, holla at your boy.
Hell yeah. Slurpee.
Yeah, Slurpee, totally like
Big gulp.
64-ounce brain freeze, like complete
Yeah.
diabetic 2 coma.
Totally.
Totally. And then we go to this like comic store, and then we go to the batting cages, and we go, this is all my town, arcade, like really far away. But got bigger block by block. So if I had and I came from a working class family in a working class town. And yeah, there was always that kid who had like the new Huffy, and there was always that kid who had like the better whatever, better skateboard or better sneakers. But I can't even imagine what it's like. And for this girl who had obsessionality around a whole host of things, and was very perfectionistic and incredibly harsh on herself and had a real inner bitch, to have exposure to literally the world. And I mean, talk about imposter syndrome. So, I think we don't know enough yet too. I think we need to hold space for research. I mean, there's more and more coming out that it's just whew, like the comparative analysis of the world and juxtaposing yourself against Logan Paul, who is a bazillionaire at whatever the hell he was, 22 or something. That's a lot. That is a lot. And, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And to not know that your child is struggling with, say, body image or self-esteem or inner critic, and or so that was the big thing I got too, is just how important you were pushing, or the importance you were placing, I should say, on parents pushing in and being present, and knowing each child, as you shared so eloquently about each of your kiddos, and what was the kind of the rubric for deciding those decisions for each child. So that was great. So appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, God, you just brought up something that I feel like we could talk for hours about too, which is this like comparison culture, which I'm going to be honest with you, affects me as a grown adult, right? That
Mhm.
I see I'm on social media all the time. P.S. I love social media. It has given me so many wonderful opportunities, and I'm not here hating on it. Nor, I mean, I think that's been a big part of my success is that I don't go into schools and I'm like, "You're all gonna die. Get off this
Right.
stuff. It's
Right.
corrupting our." As you said, there's first of all, there's not enough evidence. We don't have enough longitudinal data to actually say. But also, like, God, I think oh my gosh, just last night I went to a high school orientation where this girl started a program at the high school that my kids will attend, hopefully. And she was talking about how she saw on social media these kids that started a program for adult learners who were in the school that were kept entirely separate. But she was like, how great would it be if we could use a free block and like work with some of these people on life skills
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
how to do their homework? And she's because she saw something on social media, she started it at this high school, and it was like featured on news channels because it's so amazingly successful and wonderful. So look, like, I'm not here to hate on social media, but every day I see as a grown woman who I mean, I definitely don't have my shit together. I try to think I have my shit together, but like I see these moms who are like head to toe decked out and their house is perfect and they're teaching their kids 5 languages with their 5 course organic meals. And I'm like, shit,
Yep.
I threw like Lucky Charms on the table this morning and I was like, gotta go
I
to a
think I think
meeting.
they're gluten
Like,
free though. I think they're gluten free.
oh, perfect, perfect. Yeah, don't judge, Thomas. Um, and was like, that was my parenting this morning. And I feel like shit about it kind of as I just saw this mom doing all these lovely fancy omelets for school.
And she has 6% body fat. And why do I know that?
Yes,
Because she
exactly.
tells you every freaking post.
Yes, yes, but, like, we don't see the mess, we see what people want us to see, and look, I'm an adult
Sure.
who can has a fully developed frontal lobe that can supposedly distinguish that stuff. But, like, imagine a teen or a tween
Totally.
seeing this stuff every day, what you're supposed to look like, what you're supposed to wear, who you're supposed to be, how many followers you're supposed to have. Like, I literally walk into schools every day and I want to like hug all these kids because I'm
Totally.
like, it's tough. It's freaking tough out there.
Well, and then, I mean, this is where I go as well, obviously, as a, parent coach and a therapist, and I've been, pushing this forever. I'm not, total side note, I'm not anti-psych meds at all, but it's kind of funny to me when I was practicing, my wife and I, Nicole, we built this large psychotherapy center in the Berkshires, and it would be very difficult to motivate clients to consider a med consult with a psychiatrist or psych nurse. Whereas here now, my office is in Newburyport, it's almost the reverse. I'm like, there's this thing called the woods, believe it or not. There's this thing called sleep. There's this thing called like
Yeah,
walking. There's this thing called like don't eat processed food. So it's kind of interesting culturally too. And I think about just the phone too. And again, exercise, food, sleep, so important for anyone's mental health, particularly obviously tweens, teens, and young adults. And, don't want to get off topic about what we're here to talk about, but just the amount of time, the sheer enormity too of time that is not potentially going toward right any of these healthy pursuits that would really undergird someone's positive mental health if they are isolating to boot, right, and then swiping left and not delaying gratification and just taking the
yeah,
failing the marshmallow test every day. So
for
yeah,
sure.
there's so much here, so much here. So one of the things I think people are going to be psyched to hear, because again, people like to leave things feeling like, okay, what are my goodies? But again, I still think everything we talked about in the first episode and so far into this one is really the goodie bag, which is again, we are in fact at the end of the day the most effective thing beyond everything you're about to dive into. But arm us to the teeth, please, lady. Hook us up with some do's and don'ts and things like that. And how do we help us be more effective, or how do we help our kids, right, be that much more knowledgeable and safer and better consumers?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think we hit upon the first one, which is like we gotta be aware of what our family's needs are, and then individually within those families and what works best individually. And by the way, what works best individually today might change tomorrow. So being flexible in that, I think we covered that a lot. My second one is, and we talked about this in the first episode, is kind of handling technology like a driver's ed, right? And and not just in our own world because we didn't grow up with this stuff. So we kind of have to learn this as well. But I always say, I want parents to know what their kids are doing on a Google level. I don't need you to be a TikTok influencer
Mhm.
to under with a million followers to understand how TikTok works and how it might benefit your kid, or are there certain things that might be problematic for them? So one of the things that I do, and I mentioned this, that my 13-year-old daughter and my 12-year-old son don't have access to any social media, don't have access to their own devices. That does not mean that we don't do driver's ed around this every single day. Because guess what? We don't live in a bubble. I want them to have this at some point if they choose to. They're on the bus every morning with kids that are on it the whole entire time. So I don't expect that just because my kids aren't allowed to have TikTok or Snapchat or their own phones, that they're not sitting next to kids on the bus every single day who are on it. And
Mhm.
that's fine. But my job as a parent is to equip them on how to use this stuff. So one of the greatest exercises I do multiple times a week is I sit down with my kids and I scroll through my social media with them. And we have we have had so many very long conversations about what we see, what we don't
Mm.
see. Um, Even in those really uncomfortable moments, like I'm sure you can appreciate, there were so many times that we're sitting like on TikTok or Snapchat, and I'm like, oh my God, never mind, never mind. I don't know what that was. Like, and you want to scroll by it.
Mhm.
But quite frankly, sitting in those super uncomfortable moments where my kids are like, I saw that, mom, like scroll back.
Mhm.
Sitting in those uncomfortable moments, we've done some of our best work as a
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
Cause I'll give you an example. We saw this woman once. She's in her 20s, 30s. I don't know. Super like barely clothed, doing some dance, like TikTok dance that was like, as a parent, you're like, "Oh my god," to some lyrics about like sexually abusing women and whatever, something that you're like, "Shit,"
Mhm.
right? And one of those ones that I definitely want to scroll past. But of course, my kids were like, "Whoa, what was that?" So we go back and I'm not joking, Thomas, we had one of, like, the greatest conversations about that because I was like, "Okay, is this appropriate? Nope. What do we do when things aren't appropriate? Are there things that we can do in TikTok? Do we go talk to our friends about it? Can we ask questions about it? What does this mean?"
Mhm.
And maybe I go too far. Again, I said in the first episode, like, my kids are gonna be in therapy for a long time due to the way that I parent, but, like, we what does this word mean? You don't even know. So you go into school tomorrow singing this song because it's catchy, and it's talking about like, non-consensual sex with a woman, by the way, is what it's talking about, and, like, so let's not repeat things that we
Sure.
don't know what it means.
Sure.
I'd love for you to come. I'll tell you anything you want. Come to me and ask me. I'll tell you. And, who did this woman post this video for? Do you think that she thought a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old be hanging out with their mom watching this video? Probably not. But here we are, right? What's the type of attention that this woman got on this video? What do the comments look like? And I'll tell you, you can imagine they were horrific and degrading and disgusting and awful. And, like, we had some really amazing conversation around that video that I just wanted to wish never happened sitting next to my 12 and 13-year-olds, right? But in that discomfort, we were able to cover so many things. And I'm not joking. Once in a while, my kids would be like, "Hey, mom, remember that video that we saw that we talked about for a long time? You know what I was thinking today? I wonder if like the principal of her elementary school ever stumbled across that." And I was like, maybe. I don't know. Do you think that she created that with that in mind? That, oh my gosh, my elementary school principal might see this, or my soccer coach might see this in 10 years? Like, probably not. So I think twofold, right? Two of the things that I work with kids and parents on a lot is, yes, being good producers of information, right? Like, yeah, be careful, all the things. Be careful what you put out there. Everything can be screenshotted. Like, yeah, that's super important. But also, one of the biggest things we need to do as parents right now is help our kids be good consumers of information, right? And what do we do with this information? And can we fact check the information? Because it's kind of fucked up that we live in a world right now where anyone can post anything they want, right? I could go post a video about you right now about how you're, the worst coach on the planet. And, by the way, my son fell in love with soccer again because of Thomas. So, all not true, but like I could do that if I
Sure.
want, right? And that you have no clue what you're talking about. And I could post that video and like that could catch on and people could see that and that could ruin your career or whatever, or maybe not. And it's really messed up to me that people just take at face value, adults and kids, what comes across their screen.
Right.
So can we push our kids to be better consumers of information and more responsible about what it is that they take in?
Yeah, there's so oh my god, there's so much there. One
Sorry, I talked for a long
No,
time.
that was fantastic. What it brought me to is I used to be the director of a program for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender kids ages 13 to 21 outside of New York City. And what was always fascinating to me is when I first joined the center, it was 17 to 21. And of course, we had different programming age appropriate programming for college versus high school age kids. But what would always be fascinating to me is when I'd be sitting there with a kid, and this was like back in 2003 when kids were being thrown out on the street for being gay, and it was such a fantastic program because we actually had in the beginning, of course, it was like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we had the white kids, right, because of it was easier for them to come out, and they didn't
Sure,
have as
sure.
many stressful potentially macro issues, and
Yeah.
culturally speaking it was there weren't as many systemic factors against them and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden we had a lot of bisexual kids, and we had transgender kids, and we had a huge Caribbean population. That was fascinating, right? As
Cool.
a white straight male, to be the director of an LGBT program, talking to Caribbean families of Caribbean descent, and
Super cool.
yeah, and despite differences, being able to meet at the North Star of the health of their child. But what would always happen is the parents, understandably, when the kids would first come out, if they were, and you could call them homophobic or not, but if they had a negative reaction, it was all because they loved their kid. It was all because it was
Sure,
driven by
sure.
anxiety. It was all because they didn't want their kid to be hurt. And it's just interesting how a lot of times we fear what we don't know, and to, help kids, like you're saying, like navigate, their perception is often wrong. I would have so many kids say, "Oh, I'm gonna be thrown out in the street," and their parents would have a very positive reaction, or, "Oh,
Yeah.
things are gonna be great," and they weren't great. And so I'm just sorry for the detour, but I'm thinking about, as you're thinking about a kid posting something, like, we really have to help them understand the longevity factor of this post. We really have to help them also, I'm thinking from a mental health standpoint, like, do you have the internal grit, resiliency to manage the hate? Because there will be hate, like you said,
Oh,
and on
yeah.
some level, in terms of you mentioning me or you or whoever, um, the more successful I become and you become, we will invariably have haters. It's actually a sign of success. But that's different when you're 45, versus when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
12 and 13. And
Sure.
so that idea of, like you said, educated consumers, we forget so often, I think, that kids don't have a fully formed frontal lobe. You mentioned that, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Females late 20s, and I'm sorry, guys, late 20s. Sorry, ladies. You have a fully formed frontal lobe sooner than men, right? If you can get to your late 20s and then you decide, right, to smoke pot, that's a very different outcome, right? We know the degree to which someone delays the onset of, right, use, whether we're talking about any kind of substances, the less likely, right, the risks are for them to have future problems. So the same is true, again, not inherently about just delay till 10th grade or 11th grade. But I love that idea of, you're trying to use your own social media. You're trying to create a parallel process that's going to, right, create positive decision making on their own part. You're also trying to help them, like you said, glean and learn and see what's going on there. So they're not just like opening their brain, right, and pouring that information in. So there's such an opportunity. And like, again, Doja Cat, whoever, to, I don't know, Madonna, to whoever, like, there's always an opportunity for teachable moments. I don't think that's that different. Yes, the speed of it, the power of it, right? Of
Yeah.
these TikTok, and thank God, right? I when I showed up, it was so funny. I showed up to practice the other day, and someone said, "Trump saved TikTok."
Oh god. Oh god.
It was like, okay,
Oh
I
god.
don't know, whatever. I don't know if that's true, but at any rate, it's just too funny, So I think, yeah, sitting with your kids and helping them figure out how they, again, do they wanna post this? You know? Also, like you said, just reading between the lines, like, what is this saying about women, this post? Or what is it saying about, from a body image standpoint? Or how do you feel? I mean, the amount of pressures, and bullshit that I hear, that teenage
Oh my
females
god.
are navigating. I mean, it's kind of hard transition here, but unfortunately, if we're talking about, girls who are heterosexual, so often they are bombarded with, requests for nudes, or they
Oh yeah.
are sometimes unsolicited, receive, sexually explicit, whether, pics and things like that. I had a client recently tell me that, this was last year, she joined an Instagram group for the college. She was an incoming freshman, and she received numerous sexually explicit images of, other, freshman males of that college. I mean, it's like, and the fact that that would be typified as okay, and there's no even self-awareness around how boundary violating that is such a crazy world, right? From a bombardment standpoint. Where do you think to guide, parents, when it comes to, an app or this or that? Is it more, okay, like you were saying, everything you just said, which was assess what's going on. So how what I wrote down that you said, assess what's going on, really think individually versus just kind of globally. Take it kid by kid. The exercise you talked about, sitting down, scrolling through your social media, helping them be good consumers, is what should a middle school parent do, like, today? What should a high school parent do? What should a college age parent, or even younger kids?
Yeah, and, I liken this to, and by the way, I think you said something really important that, like, we have to keep going back to, which is, there's this really great article, that was written by this, pediatric nurse. Her name is Melanie Hemp, and the title of the article was why middle school kids' brains aren't ready for social media. And what is so genius about it is she was like, "Hey, forget talking about social media or any technology. Like, we've known that these kids' frontal lobes aren't fully developed until their 20s, mid-20s, late 20s based on gender and a bunch of other things. But, like, so when we're putting this really powerful tool in front of them and are expecting them to be great and perfect on it, like, shame on us, right? That's a you know, so I think that's important. Here's one thing I will say, like a hard tip, I guess, for parents is know your apps on a Google level. And one of the cool things that is is great about technology and tablets and phones and for middle school parents and high school parents and elementary school parents, you can set up your device so that you're the master account holder, and then you can set your child's device up as a sub account holder underneath you through parental controls. They come already on our devices. You just have to enable them. On my website, I have like a step by step guide on how to do that. But I think this, you can enable a whole bunch of things. You can control their screen time. You can control what apps they have access to, what apps they don't have access to. And then this really great feature called Ask to Buy. So anytime if my kids had their own iPads or phones, anytime they go to download an app, it comes to my device first, and I have to approve it before they're like neck deep in it, right? And so what I would do is if Brooks came home and downloaded an app, it would come to my phone and say, "Hey, Brooks has requested to use character.ai." A lot of people have never heard of that
I
before,
have. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of people
Is
have
he gonna
not.
make
So I
himself look
I
like a
promise you.
Viking or something? Is that what he's going
Yeah,
for?
yeah, exactly. Or like a professional soccer
Yeah,
player
yeah.
that uses his left foot. And like so what would I do as a parent maybe that's never heard of that before? I'm just
Mhm,
gonna Google it and I'm gonna learn a little bit about it. And I'm gonna learn that they can go have chats in chat rooms and that they can go talk with Messi, right?
mhm,
As an AI character, but like this AI is really good,
mhm,
pretty real. I could go have a live chat with Messi and as his AI character and as my AI character. And then we could go into a group chat and talk about other people. And like that can be really cool as like a family activity, but it can be really dangerous as well for kids that
mhm,
are like, "Oh my god, Messi is my whole life, and he's the coolest thing ever, and he's talking to me, and he's making me feel good,"
mhm,
and I don't know, right? It can get really messy. So, like, we need to do our research. We just can't go, "I don't know anything about AI, approve," right? Like, can we be better about just educating ourselves a
sure,
little bit? Or go ask your kids,
sure.
right? Most of my content comes from me asking kids questions. So go ask your, what is this? Why do you want this? Who's using this? Are there privacy settings? Like, how can we use this in a safe way? Are there dangers? So I think that's another really powerful tool that we have that we can take advantage of that'll keep us in the know.
Well, the thing where I like there's a pause, right? One of the things, I have said for sure since I would say 2000 is between impulse and action, there is a pause.
Mm,
And
mhm,
it's our job as parents to help our kids expand that pause because that pause is time for a breath. That pause is time potentially for a thought and then maybe a counter thought and maybe an evaluation of that thought. That pause is potentially taking space when you're superheated, right? And you don't necessarily need to say that thing or hit send or do that thing. And so I love that when you said, "Oh, I don't know that much about AI, so I'll just send it," right? It's kind of like
mm.
impulse, right? You know,
Yeah.
if there's an opportunity for a positive parallel process, I always say there's a negative parallel process, right? That happens too. If I'm drinking and drugging, right, as a parent, or if I'm just numbing out, or if I'm so stressed out and a workaholic, well, what do you think that's going to create, right? In terms of from a modeling standpoint. So if I'm dysregulated, you know, in terms of managing my emotions, well, guess what? My kid's going to be dysregulated and I'm not going to be co-regulating. But here, what you're saying is there's an opportunity for us to hold space for what we don't know, to be, you know, kind of a little bit more Sherlock Holmes and take a more open, inquisitive stance and learn more, and then also pause and then allow, right, our children to do the same thing, which is before they're, right, just consuming that it's not all green light, you know, and the
Right.
majority of the families that I work with have a kiddo at best, let's say at best, has ADHD, and that's that, right? Just ADHD.
Hmm.
So there's often ADHD and dyslexia, or ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder, or ADHD and anxiety. I mean, this idea of neurodivergence, kind of different episode, but pretty soon hardly anyone will be neurotypical. I mean, we're looking at dyslexia now as neurodivergent, ADHD, ASD, began from autism spectrum. So, we have to also understand too, like, we talked about this in the first episode, but each kid is different. Each kid has a different learning style. If a kid is not able to sit in a desk, for 8 hours a day or whatever it is, 7.5, right? That's probably a child that's going to struggle, right? To manage their inhibitions, when it comes to social media.
There's actually research around that. There was just a paper that came out about ADHD kids and their how prone they are to addictive
Totally.
behaviors when it comes to games and
Totally.
social media. And it all
Totally.
makes like sense. But yeah, for sure.
It totally makes sense. And again, so like we have to know our kids. And the thing that always shocks me is, as someone who's been a licensed therapist in practice since 2002, and now has this coaching program. The things that kids share with me, and the quasi surrogate parenting that I've done over the years, is scary. That these children are navigating these worlds, like you mentioned, screenshotting. I mean, like whether it's Snapchat or whatever. I mean, I can't tell you kids call, when they're hungover, college kids or high school kids, the next day they call it the hangxiety. Well, there's like a sensiety that happens, or a snap,
Yeah.
a screen anxiety. I have so many kids that come in that are so keyed up because they said or did something they wish they hadn't, and now it's, they're put on blast and it's shared with everybody. And so again, there's always opportunities, like we talked about in the first episode, wherever you are, to just assess not only for yourself, but also your kid. And you always can think about what's the next right choice, right? And put your foot on the next right rock and make the next right action, even if, again, you weren't perfect and you came out of the gate kind of sloppy. What would you say, just to, because you gave so much amazing advice, if someone takes a deep breath right now. They're feeling overwhelmed, and you gave such great stuff. I wrote everything down: master account holder to sub account holder to screen time to apps they can control, approved to buy, right? Um, what is the major, major, major takeaway that you want, parents to take from these two episodes, and just really kind of sow into their heart?
Yeah. That you are the expert in your household and of your family and of your children, and feel empowered by that, while we may be really overwhelmed by technology. And I get that and I feel that along with you. I think the empowerment comes in knowing that anyone can do a search about anything and learn or educate themselves or find a resource like myself or ask your kids, and empowering ourselves, arm ourselves with as much information as possible. We can really help our kids kick the shit out of technology in a positive and productive way. Cause, look, the way that our kids use technology might be their career path. Like,
Hmm.
how cool is that?
Uh-huh.
That, as a female, I was able to get a career path in law enforcement, a male dominated field,
Hmm.
and then turn it into my own company. Like, how
Hmm.
cool is that? So, really empowering. While I understand it's overwhelming, feeling empowered that our kids might use this technology one day to, like, cure cancer or do something really cool with it. So, how can we just be informed enough to help them navigate and help them pick them up when they fall? I will say one other big tip that if I could express to any parent, and Thomas, I know you've covered this before, but like, can you be that guiding star for your kids that they know they can come to you with any question that they have? Because our kids are being exposed to more information than ever before because of technology. So, I want my kids to be, or any kid to be, that person that they come to when they see something that they don't get, or when they see something that rocks their world, or when they hear something that their friends are talking about in a group chat. Like, I want to be the person that you come to. And can you create a safe space for your kids to come to you when it comes to technology? And I think that is more powerful, Thomas, than any other app that anyone could ever develop to
Hmm.
help
Hmm.
our kids navigate this,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on that because I have horror stories. I don't want to end with horror stories, but how many times has a kid come to me that I've been treating over the 20 years doing this work, where they felt completely alone, and had they more proactively reached out to a parent or whomever, it wouldn't have been as deep in the crap as they're in now. And so, yes, holding space and having a non-judgmental stance, as much as you're freaking out internally when they're telling you, oh my God, I did just post this, or did this happen, or this screenshot, like you said, that having the open door policy, even if there are natural consequences that need to ensue, as they probably should. It's the same thing with, you don't want your kid getting in the car with someone who's under the influence at 2 a.m. just because they
I'm
don't feel
scared to call you.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're afraid to call you. I cannot thank you enough, Katie. Like, I am already doing a really deep inventories, of myself, and thinking about all the great conversations that are about to ensue. You mentioned that you have a website that has some really great resources. Let's just
Yeah.
shout that out one more time, so folks can reach out if they want to engage you. Again, Katie, I think we've covered this, but I want to cover it again. Travels all over. She is, as clearly she's demonstrated over these last 2 episodes, a digital safety expert, one of the best in the nation. It's just so grateful to have you on the show and have shared your expertise. And so she speaks to K through 12. That would be funny. K through 2, K through 12 schools, corporations, all kinds of different institutions. She, creates highly individualized and very tailored programs to, obviously, the age, to the population, to the specific cause, and really just helps parents and or adults and or teens, right, and kids, and college kids navigate better. You have a whole piece too that Katie does that's really important for athletes, right? Because we all, I
Yeah.
say all the time that you have a personal brand whether you realize it or not, and if you're not managing it, someone
Yeah.
else is. And so she
Sure.
also does tons of talks for D1, D2, D3 athletes. So, but please tell folks how they can reach out if they want to get,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's KL Greer, Greer, so klgreer.com, and there's a link on there to everything that I got. You can email me, you can call me, you can follow me on social media. I post a lot of stuff on social media that I think might be helpful to people going forward. If I hear about something new, or if there's actually just a really great article that I reposted about some high school students that went to flip phones for their mental
I
health.
saw that. I saw that.
So cool.
So cool.
Yeah, and, so please feel free to do that if you wanna book me for your school or corporation or whatever. That's definitely the way to do it. Like I said, my email's on there, my phone's on there. So, yeah, that would be awesome, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. You've taught me so much about, being a better parent, and, trying to be more patient and aware, with my own kids, and we're really lucky to have this podcast, so thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And if ever you want to find out more about Katie, I will put in the descriptions of both of these episodes, again, her site that she just mentioned, as well as, of course, if you want to have tips, tools, strategies directly into your inbox in the show notes, please sign up for the Four Peaks newsletter. And I hope to see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day. Be well. Bye. Hey everyone, Thomas here. First off, it means the world to me that you took the time to listen to my podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, if you want to receive the latest podcast updates, as well as expert parenting tips and practical strategies for navigating your tween, teen, or young adults challenges directly to your inbox, then sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. And most importantly, if you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, stuck, stressed, and are losing sleep because you're constantly worried about your tween, teen, or young adult, your first step is to realize that you still have a choice and can do something about it. I'm ready to help you take action and create the results you desire today. Just go to fourpeaksparents.com and book a free strategy call. Let's do this. Last thing, while you were listening to this show, who was the one person that you thought could really benefit from hearing it? Please share it with them.